Hey everyone. Tonight, we're going somewhere important. Somewhere quiet now, but once so loud with fear and fury it seems impossible the grass could ever grow again. Tonight we walk slowly, tenderly, into the early hours of June 6th, 1944. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where and when you're listening from. I like to imagine all of us, scattered across the world, sharing this gentle moment together. Maybe it's late at night for you, or maybe the soft greys of dawn are already beginning to lighten your sky. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Now, take a moment, get cozy, adjust your blanket. Let the rhythm of your breath slow. You're safe here. Let the world fade to a murmur and follow me, because tonight we're going back to Normandy. But not as a soldier with a rifle, not in a tank or in a bomber overhead. No, tonight you are a medic. The first thing you notice is the chill. You're below deck, pressed shoulder to shoulder with other men in a landing craft that rocks gently on the black water of the English Channel. The air is thick with salt and sweat, a sour kind of fear that clings to the skin. Above, the stars blink slowly, as if reluctant to bear witness to what's coming. You're a combat medic. That title sounds official, clean, clear, but what it means is far messier. You're not armed, you won't be shooting. You'll be running toward the screaming, toward the blood, dragging people to safety while bullets snap overhead. You're the one who's meant to keep people alive, but you carry little more than morphine, bandages, and quiet desperation. Your helmet is marked with a red cross. Geneva Convention regulations say it's supposed to protect you, but you know the truth. That mark is just as likely to draw fire as deflect it. The enemy knows what you do, they know how valuable you are. You lean your head back against the cold steel behind you and listen to the distant thunder, naval artillery softening up the coast. That's what the officers say, softening up. The language is so strangely gentle, almost polite, for what it means. Destruction. You're glad you can't see it from here. Not yet. The man next to you lights a cigarette with shaking hands. He offers you one. You don't smoke, but you take it. There's something grounding about the ritual, flame, breath, ash. It fills the space where panic tries to creep in. You don't speak, there's not much to say. You feel the rumble change, the craft's engine slows. You know that means you're getting close. The time for waiting is nearly over. You reach into your satchel and feel around. Morphine syrettes, sulfur powder, gauze, scissors. You go over each one by touch alone, making sure they're all still there. Each item is small and familiar, but in a few hours, each will feel like a lifeline, and also heartbreakingly inadequate. Above you, the first pale blush of morning begins to bloom. Soft grey over the water, a thin seam of light on the horizon. This is the last calm moment, the last breath before history inhales. You think about home, not in a desperate way, not yet. But in the stillness of this moment, your mind wanders. You think about the smell of coffee from the kitchen, the uneven floorboards in your hallway, the sound of a screen door swinging shut. Things that feel impossibly far away now, as though they belong to a different lifetime entirely. And still, the engine hums. And still, the channel rocks the boat gently, like a cradle. Then, without warning, the ramp slams down. The noise is immediate and overwhelming. Gunfire, shouting, the crack of bullets hitting metal. The sea froths with chaos. And you're moving, wading through water up to your chest, holding your pack high, breathing in short, sharp gasps. You hear someone call for help. You turn toward the voice, already soaked, already cold. You don't even know who it is. You just go, because you are a medic, and it's just beginning. Your boots are filled with seawater, heavy and cold, dragging at your legs as you stumble forward through the surf. The beach is a blur of smoke and movement and sound, but you don't look at it all at once. You can't. You focus on what's in front of you. One step, then another, and then a voice, crying out, sharp with pain, close by. You see him just beyond the waterline, curled on his side, one hand pressed to his thigh. The sand around him is wet and dark, too dark, and you know what that means. You drop beside him, and the routine, doubt takes over. Talk to him, keep him awake, keep his head up, check the wound. You rip open your kit with fingers that don't feel like yours, and pack the hole with gauze, careful but fast. You reach for the syringe of morphine, your hands already shaking as you jab it into his upper arm. It's the third you've used already, and it's only been minutes since you hit the shore. He grabs your arm as you finish, eyes wide, searching your face for something you don't have the power to give. You say you'll come back. You lie. You don't mean to, but you have to move on. There are others, always others, and the sounds are getting louder again. Machine guns sweeping the sand, mortars thudding into the earth nearby, shouts from officers drowned by the wind. You crawl. That's the only way forward now, low to the ground, belly dragging in the sand, trying not to see what's all around you. A man missing most of his face, another screaming for his mother, a boy, he looks no older than 16, curled up and shaking, untouched but broken already. You put a hand on his shoulder as you pass, and he doesn't move. Your supplies run out faster than you ever imagined they could. You've torn through your bandages, used every syringe of morphine, and the sulfur powder is gone. You start using your own shirt to tie off wounds. You keep crawling, keep finding more, keep doing what you can. The tide doesn't care. It pulls at the bodies as if trying to carry them back to sea. The water is tinged pink now, sometimes red, the foam streaked with it. Helmets float like driftwood. Rifles lie abandoned. You can hear the whistle of bullets overhead, but you keep moving, mouth full of grit, lungs burning from the smoke. There's a small rise ahead, a cluster of men taking cover behind the steel skeleton of a Czech hedgehog. You slide in beside them. One of them is clutching his arm, soaked in blood from elbow to fingertips. The bone is exposed. He's quiet, not screaming, not crying, just staring at it like it doesn't belong to him anymore. You tear another strip from your uniform, wrap it around the wound, and ask his name. He doesn't answer. You press the cloth harder, and he finally looks at you. He whispers something you don't catch. You nod anyway. You squeeze his good shoulder and tell him it's going to be all right. Another lie. Or maybe not. Maybe you believe it, just for a second. There's no front line here, not really. Just chaos in all directions. The Germans are still dug into the bluffs above, firing down at the beach. You can't see them through the smoke, but you feel their presence in every sharp ping of bullets against steel, in the way every movement feels borrowed, like time itself is keeping score. You see another medic nearby, hunched over a man who isn't moving. His hands are shaking, and he keeps trying to restart something that's already ended. You look at each other across the wreckage, not saying a word, but you both know. You know what it is to lose someone before you can even finish unwrapping the bandage. You know the weight of that. He gives you a nod, tired, tight, and you move on. Somewhere to your left, someone yells, "Medic!" and your body responds before your mind does. You crawl, you stumble, you run a few steps before dropping again. A man is pinned under part of a landing craft, legs trapped, bleeding out. You can't lift it, not alone. You shout for help, but no one answers. You crouch, press your weight on his wound, try to stop the bleeding with your bare hands. He's gasping now, teeth clenched, jaw tight with pain. He asks you not to let him die. You lie again. You crawl. That's the only way forward now, low to the ground, belly dragging in the sand, trying not to see what's all around you. A man missing most of his face, another screaming for his mother. A boy, he looks no older than 16, curled up and shaking, untouched but broken already. You put a hand on his shoulder as you pass, and he doesn't move. Your supplies run out faster than you ever imagined they could. You've torn through your bandages, used every syringe of morphine, and the sulfur powder is gone. You start using your own shirt to tie off wounds. You keep crawling, keep finding more, keep doing what you can. The tide doesn't care. It pulls at the bodies as if trying to carry them back to sea. The water is tinged pink now, sometimes red, the foam streaked with it. Helmets float like driftwood. Rifles lie abandoned. You can hear the whistle of bullets overhead, but you keep moving, mouth full of grit, lungs burning from the smoke. There's a small rise ahead, a cluster of men taking cover behind the steel skeleton of a Czech hedgehog. You slide in beside them. One of them is clutching his arm, soaked in blood from elbow to fingertips. The bone is exposed. He's quiet, not screaming, not crying, just staring at it like it doesn't belong to him anymore. You tear another strip from your uniform, wrap it around the wound, and ask his name. He doesn't answer. You press the cloth harder, and he finally looks at you. He whispers something you don't catch. You nod anyway. You squeeze his good shoulder and tell him it's going to be all right. Another lie. Or maybe not. Maybe you believe it. Just for a second. There's no front line here. Not really. Just chaos in all directions. The Germans are still dug into the bluffs above, firing down at the beach. You can't see them through the smoke, but you feel their presence in every sharp ping of bullets against steel, in the way every movement feels borrowed, like time itself is keeping score. You see another medic nearby, hunched over a man who isn't moving. His hands are shaking, and he keeps trying to restart something that's already ended. You look at each other across the wreckage, not saying a word, but you both know. You know what it is to lose someone before you can even finish unwrapping the bandage. You know the weight of that. He gives you a nod, tired, tight, and you move on. Somewhere to your left, someone yells, "Medic!" and your body responds before your mind does. You crawl, you stumble, you run a few steps before dropping again. A man is pinned under part of a landing craft, legs trapped, bleeding out. You can't lift it, not alone. You shout for help, but no one answers. You crouch, press your weight on his wound, try to stop the bleeding with your bare hands. He's gasping now, teeth clenched, jaw tight with pain. He asks you not to let him die. You lie again.
Later, when the tide has started to pull out and the air is thick with smoke and fire, you find yourself crouched in a crater with 3 others, one of them unconscious, the other 2 looking at you like you know what to do. You don't. You're trained, yes, but nothing in training was like this. They didn't show you what it would be like to watch a man drown in blood, didn't prepare you for the sound a lung makes when it collapses. They didn't tell you what it would be like to feel helpless over and over again in the space of a few minutes. Your fingers are raw. Your knees are bruised. You've lost track of how many you've treated, how many you've lost. The sun is fully up now, casting a cruel light over the shattered beach. You realise you haven't spoken in hours, except to comfort the dying. Someone hands you a new satchel, supplies, morphine, powder, bandages. You take it without speaking, you don't thank them, there's no time. You move again, crawling out of the crater, into the smoke, into the sound, because you are a medic, and the day is far from over. The land beyond the beach starts to rise, gentle at first, then sharper, past the wire, the mines, the thin road gouged into the hillside by tank treads and boots. You follow a column of soldiers moving inland, their packs low, rifles up, eyes darting. You don't carry a weapon, just your satchel. Heavier now with new supplies, though not nearly enough for what's coming. The air smells of cordite and churned earth, and the trees ahead look like they've been struck by lightning, limbs torn away, bark shredded, leaves blackened. The birds are silent. You keep to the ditches, the low ground, the places where your helmet barely rises above the stalks of wild grass and broken stone. You've learned already to recognise what's dangerous. A whistling sound, thin and rising, means a shell is incoming. You hit the dirt when you hear it. You don't wait. You've seen what happens when someone waits. The road splits. The infantry heads right, you take the left path where you heard someone shouting for a medic moments ago. You don't know who shouted, doesn't matter. You follow the voice anyway. There's a hedgerow, the kind that curls thick around the Normandy farmland, ancient and dense, nearly impenetrable. Behind it, you find a small clearing. 3 men are down. One is screaming, one is unconscious, one is very still. You go to the screamer first. Chest wound, not fatal yet. You tear his uniform open, apply pressure. He grabs your wrist, nails digging into your skin. His teeth are red. You wrap him fast, tie the bandage tight across his ribs, administer morphine, enough to keep him calm, but breathing.
You move next to the unconscious man. Shrapnel wound to the head, shallow pulse. You clean it, dress it. There's little else you can do now. You wedge a piece of cloth beneath his neck to tilt his head and let gravity help where medicine can't. The last man. He's cold already. You touch his face, close his eyes. You don't say anything. Behind you, a group of paratroopers appears through the hedgerow, fresh from a drop that went wrong. Their faces are painted, dark with mud and sweat. One of them has a broken ankle, the other a bullet through the calf.
You tend to both in silence. They don't talk much, only watch you. You finish quickly. You're getting faster. One of them offers you a sip from his canteen. You take it, not because you're thirsty, but because it's the first time someone's offered you anything today. The water tastes metallic but cold. You nod, thanks. He nods back. The men move on. You stay behind for a moment, kneeling among the wounded and the dead, your fingers resting on the strap of your bag. You don't look at the body. Not again. Not yet. You hear gunfire again. Not far. Short bursts, controlled. That means rifles, not machine guns. You move toward it. A corporal is down on the side of the road, pinned in a shallow ditch, blood pooling around his lower back. His men are taking cover behind a burned-out jeep, returning fire in short bursts. They call you forward, waving frantically. You crawl low, feel the sting of gravel through your sleeves and knees, the mud soaking into your socks. When you reach the corporal, he's conscious, sweating heavily, teeth chattering despite the heat. You ask him to move his toes. He can't. Your stomach drops. You don't say anything, just nod and start wrapping the wound, praying the spine isn't shattered. His hands grip your sleeve like a lifeline. You administer morphine, whisper something about getting him to the field hospital soon. He nods slowly. He doesn't believe it. Neither do you. As you work, the fire lessens. The enemy pulls back. One of the corporal's men comes over, helps you lift him onto a makeshift stretcher. 2 rifles and a tarp. You carry him with them, slow and cautious through the tall grass, sweat pouring down your back. He groans with every step, but he's still alive when you hand him off to a pair of stretcher bearers headed toward the rear. You keep walking. Further inland. Further from the sea. The landscape shifts now. Less sand. More stone and hedgerow. Scattered farms, craters like open mouths in the earth. The roads are narrow, choked with broken wagons and abandoned bicycles. You pass through one small village, half-burned, windows shattered, livestock screaming in a barn that collapsed on itself. A soldier points you toward the church, where they've been bringing the worst of the wounded. Inside, it smells of blood and wax and old wood. The pews have been pushed aside. The altar is a surgery table now. A priest sits silently in the corner, eyes shut, whispering prayers you can't hear. One of the doctors motions you over. He's elbow deep in a man's abdomen and needs you to hold the clamps. You obey without hesitation, gripping the slick metal in both hands as the man on the table arches his back and cries out. You look away from his face. You look at the stained glass windows. One is shattered. The Virgin Mary has lost her eyes. They finish the operation. You help wrap the wound. Help move the body to a mat on the floor. He's alive, but only just. You clean the tools with boiled water and linen. The doctor doesn't speak to you. He just moves on to the next. You stay in the church for hours, maybe longer, dressing wounds, holding IV bags, carrying stretchers. There is no time, no rest, no end. At some point, you step outside for air. The sun is low now, the sky gold and pink at the edges, like some cruel mockery of peace. You sit on the stone steps, stained with someone's blood, and breathe. You can still hear gunfire in the distance. You can still taste the salt of the sea, though it's miles behind you now. You don't know how many men you helped today. You don't know how many you lost. You don't know how many more are coming. But you tighten your satchel again. You rise. You move. Because you are a medic, and the war keeps going. You don't sleep. No one does. The night doesn't bring rest. Only a different kind of waiting. Darkness folds over Normandy like a damp coat, heavy and close, hiding things it doesn't truly conceal. You're curled against the low stone wall of a farmyard that once belonged to someone, a family maybe, a man who mended tools and carried milk in the morning, a woman who boiled water over a stove,
and left her windows open in summer. Now the shutters hang crooked, and flies buzz thick around a broken cartwheel half buried in the soil.
You shift your weight in wince. Your shoulder aches from the constant pulling, lifting, dragging. The blood beneath your fingernails has dried into little black ridges. You've stopped trying to clean them. Somewhere out beyond the hedgerow, an engine starts, then cuts out, then silence again, a kind of silence at least. One filled with murmurs, distant coughs, the hiss of whispered radio orders. You press your face into your sleeve for a moment, just to block it all out. You can smell smoke on the fabric. Someone taps your boot. You look up. A young private, pale and barely visible in the dark, mouth tight with urgency. "We've got a man down in the orchard," he says. "Sniper." You're on your feet before your thoughts catch up. The orchard is east, about 200 metres across broken ground, the fields cracked by shell craters and tracked by tank treads. You follow the private through the hedge, staying low, moving like water through the gaps, slow and deliberate. The apple trees ahead look like silhouettes of the dead, thin arms reaching, bark split in chunks by bullets. Fallen fruit litters the soil, rotting, flattened under boots. You find the man behind a tree trunk, still breathing but not moving. Entry wound just under the collarbone. He's trying to stay quiet. You kneel beside him, check the bleeding, not gushing but deep. You pack it fast, ignoring the sting in your own muscles as you lean into the work. He stares up at you, eyes wide, locked on your helmet. You ask his name. He blinks, then says it, barely louder than a breath. You repeat it more firmly, like if you say it with enough conviction it'll hold him here. You tell him to breathe. You tell him help's coming. Another lie. You can't carry him alone, and the sniper's still out there. You wave the private back, whisper something about a litter, fast, careful. He nods and disappears into the dark. You stay behind, pressed flat against the earth beside the wounded man, one hand on his chest, feeling the rise and fall. His breath is shallow but steady. You hear your own heartbeat in your ears, loud and slow. After what feels like hours, you hear the rustle again. 2 more men come crawling through the dark with a stretcher between them. You help lift the wounded man, gently, slowly, every movement a negotiation with gravity and pain. The sniper doesn't fire, you don't know why. Maybe he's moved, maybe he's gone, maybe he's just watching. You carry the man back through the orchard, step by careful step, your arms screaming. Every branch brushing your helmet makes you flinch. Every rustle sounds like death. Back at the wall, you help load him into a waiting jeep. A medic from another unit climbs in beside him. You recognise her face from the church, stern, lined, too tired for words. She nods once, you nod back. The jeep pulls away without headlights. You sit down hard. The ground is still warm from the day, the grass soft in patches where it hasn't been trampled. You close your eyes for a second, but only a second. You hear someone calling again. Another man hit. Same field, further up. No one can reach him. You gather your things, your hands moving by instinct now. Supplies, bandages, water. You don't hesitate. You head back into the orchard, this time further from the line. The moon is low and orange, casting shadows that twist across the field like ropes. You stay low, crawl where you can, until you see him, a figure lying near the base of a stone fence, face down. You check first that he's breathing. He is, but shallow. You roll him gently onto his back and find a stomach wound, torn and ragged, as if the bullet hit something inside and dragged it out with it. You press down. He cries out, weak. You murmur to him, tell him he's going to be all right. He shakes his head. You ignore it. You work. You hear footsteps behind you and twist, ready to shout. It's a lieutenant. He's panting, rifle slung across his shoulder. "Ambulance can't reach this far," he says. "You've got 5 minutes before the next push. Enemy armor's close." You look down at the wounded man, then at your bag. You've got barely enough left. You ask for help. The lieutenant nods and lowers his rifle. You work together to lift the man, carry him between you, one step at a time. No cover, no light, just the sound of your boots crushing fallen apples,
and the wet rasp of the man trying to breathe. You don't make it back to the wall before the mortars start. The first one hits far off, the second closer, the third too close. You drop, all three of you, into the dirt beside a burned-out wagon. Shrapnel sprays through the sky like flocks of angry birds. The lieutenant is hit, shoulder and leg. He grits his teeth and doesn't scream. The wounded man groans. You check them both. The lieutenant tells you to leave him. You ignore him. The barrage ends after 5 minutes. It feels like an hour. You wrap the lieutenant's wounds fast, almost roughly. Then you lift again. 3 figures now, stumbling, one limping, one carried. You move. When you reach the aid post, it's a makeshift one dug into the side of a hill, lit by lanterns shaded with canvas. You lower the stretcher. The wounded man is unconscious now but breathing. The lieutenant is pale but upright. A nurse takes your place. You back away. You step outside into the dark and sit down hard in the grass. You look at your hands. You can't tell which stains are from which man. You've stopped keeping track. The night continues. Somewhere, orders are shouted. Somewhere, rifles fire. Somewhere, another man is calling for you, and you're already getting up. Because you are a medic, and the orchard is only one stop in a very long road. You reach the outskirts of the village just after dawn, where low mist clings to the ground like the last breath of night refusing to leave. The road is uneven and rutted, chewed up by the weight of tanks and boots and the sharp edges of artillery fire. Everything smells damp, dirt, sweat, ash and something harder to name. The trees are stripped, hedgerows scorched. Somewhere beyond the haze the sea still churns quietly, but its sound doesn't reach you here. You were told to report to the new aid station, set up in what was once a village schoolhouse. The original post, closer to the shore, was hit the night before. The shelling came in hard and sudden, and now it's just rubble. So now, the wounded are here. The building is crooked, its roof sagging, and half of one wall has been blown open. Windows have no glass anymore, just jagged frames and drifting smoke stains. But the structure is still standing, and that's enough. On the far wall inside, a blackboard hangs slightly off kilter. It's been written on in faint chalk, something in French, fractions maybe, or grammar exercises. A child's sun is drawn in yellow, the rays uneven but bright. The room smells of antiseptic, scorched wood and iron. Cots and stretchers fill the floors and blankets have been nailed up across corners for some small privacy, though there's little to spare. You step carefully through the cramped space, your bag heavy on your back, your hands already reaching for supplies. You don't need anyone to tell you what to do. You just look for the next pair of eyes that finds yours. You kneel beside a young man with a leg wound. The bandages are soaked through, and his face is pale and still. His breath comes in short bursts. You ask his name. He tells you. You forget it seconds later. You rewrap his leg, murmuring words that sound calm, even if they don't mean anything specific. He closes his eyes and doesn't open them again. Not because he's gone, but because trust has bought him a moment of rest. That, too, is part of your work. Another soldier lies nearby, his uniform cut open across the torso, revealing a long gash. He's awake, asking questions. He wants to know what day it is. He wants to know if his brother landed on the same beach. You don't have answers, but you give him what you can. A clean bandage, a drink of water, a promise to check on him again soon. Sometimes reassurance is the only treatment available. Through the day, the work continues. You fall into a rhythm of wound care, comfort, and constant motion. There's no room to pause, no space to think deeply. One case at a time. A splint for a broken arm, a fresh compress for an infection, a quiet hand on a shoulder. Men come in moaning, some silent, some far too still. You learn to tell the difference between the kinds of silence. Outside, the sun finally breaks through the mist, casting light that feels pale and thin. You step into it, only briefly, blinking as if seeing daylight for the first time. The courtyard is a tangle of gear, crates, and medical stretchers. You walk past them to gather water from a metal drum, the ladle rattling softly against the rim. Overhead, the sound of engines reminds you how close the front still is. Somewhere beyond the hedgerows, fighting continues. You don't look in that direction. When you return inside, they've brought in more, 2 men carried between their comrades, another guided by a nurse with an arm over her shoulders. One of the medics calls for you. You hurry over and take a look. Burns, shrapnel, exhaustion. You help with the field dressings, pass along the morphine when it's truly needed, and say as little as possible. You've learned that words aren't always what's needed. In the corner of the room, the chalkboard still hangs. Someone has written the date in the top corner. June 9. You blink at it for a moment. It doesn't feel like a Tuesday. It doesn't feel like any day at all. Later in the early evening, you find a brief moment to sit against the outer wall, your legs outstretched, boots coated in dried mud. Your hands are stained and sore. You turn them palm up and stare at the creases. There's dirt under your nails, gauze stuck to your skin. The light is starting to fade. One of the nurses passes by, nods and says nothing. You nod back. The sand draws your attention. A group approaching from the southern road, boots dragging, shoulders hunched. You rise. Some are walking wounded, others are being supported. There are no stretchers left, so they've been carrying each other however they can manage. One man limps toward you, arm held tightly to his chest, eyes unfocused. You catch him gently before he falls, guide him inside without thinking. The schoolhouse fills again. You know now that it will never really empty. You're a medic, and here, in this broken building where the chalk still clings to the walls, the real work never stops. By the next morning the rhythm has changed. Not faster, not louder, just heavier. The air feels close, like something is pressing down from above. The schoolhouse is quieter, but only because the worst of yesterday's noise has been replaced by a slower kind of suffering, the kind that stretches on. You wake, if you slept at all, not to shouting or orders, but to the low hum of a dozen men breathing unevenly, and the sharp clink of metal tools being laid out for another day of work. There is no proper breakfast. You chew on a piece of hard biscuit pulled from your bag while checking bandages. You sip water, swirl it in your mouth to clear the taste of sleep and blood. There's a boy near the back wall who's asking for his jacket. He's cold. He says it used to have his mother's letter sewn into the lining. You don't know where it is. You offer him a blanket instead. He accepts it, but his eyes stay fixed on the door. Maybe he thinks she'll walk in. By late morning, the schoolhouse is full again. You hear that the line has shifted east, and a new wave of wounded is coming from the orchard roads. Someone sets up a fresh table near the windowsill, stacking crates as a temporary prep station. You help clear space, dragging away spent supplies, folding bloodied linens, creating order out of what never stays orderly for long. You take a walk around the perimeter at midday, not because you have time, but because your legs demand motion. The air outside is still, and strangely warm. You pass the collapsed garden wall and the rusted pump well, then head up the slope where the land crests just enough to see the fields beyond. What you find there isn't a view, not really. It's a graveyard of steel and cloth. A burned-out jeep sits off to the right, engine torn open, its wheels sunken into the soft earth. Helmets lie scattered along the ditch, abandoned or lost. You don't look too closely. The field itself tells the story better than any report could. Tracks from tanks cross each other like scars gouging deep into the ground. Craters pock the landscape, shards of wood, fence posts, beams, maybe trees, jut from the soil at odd angles, as if the earth tried to spit them out. You see a pair of boots sticking out near a hedgerow unmoving. There's no one with you and no one to call. You simply remember it and keep walking. You stop by a tree, the only one still mostly standing. Its branches are ragged, bark chipped away, but it casts a narrow shadow that breaks the monotony of the light. You rest there for a moment, feeling the ache in your shoulders and the strange weight behind your eyes that never fully lifts. There's something about standing still that makes everything feel heavier. When you return to the schoolhouse, another group has arrived. One of the stretchers carries a man you recognise, not by name, but by face. You saw him 2 days ago helping carry another wounded man across the beach. He's been hit in the chest this time. A medic's already working on him, but his breathing is shallow, almost wet. You kneel opposite, offering a hand, steadying the bandage as it's fastened down. He doesn't speak. He watches the ceiling like he's waiting for something to fall from it. Eventually his eyes drift shut. The light fades earlier today. A thick bank of clouds begins to roll in from the west, and soon the windows dim, casting the inside of the schoolhouse in grey-blue shadow. Lanterns are lit one by one, placed along walls and at workstations, their glow flickering against stone and canvas. The smell of oil and smoke settles over everything. Someone passes you a mug of broth. It's barely warm, but you drink it slowly, grateful for something that isn't cold water or silence. A nurse tells you there's been trouble near the river road, sniper fire, scattered resistance. Another aid station had to be evacuated. You don't ask what happened to the ones who couldn't be moved. She doesn't say. Later in the evening you're called to the back room, where someone is fading fast. A young man, maybe 18, lies on a cot with a belly wound too deep to fix here. The dressing's been changed 3 times and still it soaks through. You sit beside him. He asks if it's going to be all right. His voice is barely more than a breath. You answer with the softest version of the truth you can manage, which is almost nothing at all.
He tells you he thought being a medic would be the safest job. That's why he signed up. He smiles when he says it, or tries to. You reach into your pocket, find a clean cloth and dab the sweat from his brow. He thanks you, then he asks if you'll stay. You say yes, and you do. After, you help move his body to the makeshift shelter out back. The earth is damp, but it's quiet. You pause there before returning inside. The wind has picked up. There's a light drizzle starting to fall, just enough to leave a trace on your sleeves. You look up at the sky, then back at the schoolhouse. Its silhouette glows faintly, warm from within, surrounded by grey. There's no end to this yet, no victory here, no rest, but you go back in anyway, because that's where the wounded are, and that's where you belong. The rain comes softly in the early hours, a gentle patter on the tin roof of the schoolhouse, masking the faint groans and whispered prayers inside. You lie awake on a cot near the wall, the damp chill seeping through your uniform. The steady rhythm of raindrops a quiet companion to the unending murmur of pain and hope that fills the room. Outside, the world is washed grey, the mist thick enough to blur the edges of the shattered village, turning it into a dreamscape where time feels suspended and the horrors of the day lie just beneath the surface, waiting for the light. Your fingers trace the edges of the bandages you wrapped hours ago, feeling the rough texture of the gauze, the faint warmth from a wounded hand resting nearby. The room smells of antiseptic and sweat, mingled with the faint bittersweet scent of rain on earth. Somewhere down the hall a nurse hums softly, her voice barely above a whisper, weaving a fragile thread of calm through the chaos. You close your eyes briefly, not to sleep but to gather yourself, to brace for the day ahead. When morning arrives, it's not with the brightness you hope for, but a muted light that seeps through cracked windows and broken shutters. The wounded stir, some cry out softly, others remain still, faces pale and drawn. You move among them with quiet steps, a steady presence amid uncertainty. The outside world is muted too, the usual sounds of battle replaced by an eerie stillness, broken only by distant artillery and the occasional sharp bark of orders. A young private catches your eye, his face etched with exhaustion and fear. His hand trembles as he reaches out for the water you offer, gratitude flickering in his gaze. You kneel beside him, your voice calm as you assure him he's not alone. For a moment, the weight of war feels distant, replaced by the simple human connection between two souls clinging to hope in the midst of devastation. Later, you step outside to the courtyard, the ground soft beneath your boots, the remnants of yesterday's fighting scattered like forgotten memories. The rain has left puddles that mirror the dull sky, broken only by the footprints of those who came before you. You breathe in the damp air, the cold, biting but cleansing, and you wonder how much longer this fragile sanctuary can hold. Yet, despite the fear and exhaustion, you feel a quiet strength growing within, born not from victory but from the courage to face each new day, one wound at a time. The shadows lengthen as evening falls once more, lanterns flicker to life, casting warm, trembling light across the worn faces of those who remain. You move through the rooms again, your hands steady as you tend to wounds both seen and unseen. There is no grand gesture here, no moment of triumph, only the quiet courage of healing, the whispered prayers and the unyielding will to carry on. As night descends, the rain returns, soft and steady, a lullaby for the broken and the brave. And though the battle rages on beyond these walls, here in the schoolhouse, amidst the silence and the shadows, you find a small measure of peace in the work that must be done. The dawn breaks again, pale and hesitant, filtering through the shattered windows and casting long, fragile beams across the floorboards worn smooth by footsteps and suffering. The schoolhouse holds its breath beneath the muted light, the air heavy with the mingled scents of sweat, antiseptic and earth. You rise slowly, muscles stiff, the ache in your back a quiet reminder of the hours past. Outside, the world remains restless, distant booms echo, and somewhere beyond the hedgerows the faint crackle of gunfire persists like a whispered warning. Inside, the wounded stir, some with pain etched across their faces, others already slipping into a quiet that feels like surrender. You move from cot to cot, your hands steady as you check pulses, clean wounds, and offer what little comfort your presence can provide. Names blur, stories fade, but each face lingers for a moment, a fleeting connection amid the tide of suffering. In a corner, a soldier lies still, his breath shallow, eyes closed but unseeing. You kneel beside him, fingers tracing the faint rise of his chest.
The silence between you is profound, a weight heavier than any shell's blast. You adjust his bandages with gentle care, whispering words that seem too small against the vastness of this place. Yet you say them anyway, because silence is a language too. A nurse catches your eye across the room. Her expression is tired but resolute, a mirror of your own. There is no room for despair here, only the relentless duty to tend, to soothe, to hold space for life amid the chaos. You share a brief nod, an unspoken pact to carry on no matter the cost. Outside, the wind picks up, rustling the tattered curtains and stirring the fallen leaves in the courtyard. The sky darkens with the promise of rain. You step briefly into the cool air, the sharpness a welcome contrast to the stale warmth inside. The village lies quiet now, a fragile calm hanging over broken walls and battered earth. You wonder how many more will come through these doors, how many stories will end within these walls. Back inside, the work continues. You move with practiced hands, steady even as exhaustion presses down. Each wound tended is a small victory. Each life saved a flicker against the encroaching night. But the weight of silence remains. A constant companion, pressing, unyielding. And still you press forward. Because to stop is to surrender the hope that lingers, fragile as it is in the midst of destruction. The hours stretch long and thin, like the shadows cast by the flickering lanterns lining the schoolhouse walls. Daylight fades slowly, and with it the steady hum of activity softens into a quieter, more deliberate rhythm. The wounded lie mostly still now, their breathing shallow or even. Some drift in and out of consciousness, caught between pain and the brief relief of exhaustion. You move carefully among them, your hands gentle as you adjust pillows, tighten bandages, and offer sips of water from a tin cup. Outside, the world seems suspended. The constant drone of distant artillery has softened to a low murmur, replaced by the occasional drip of water from the eaves and the restless rustling of leaves stirred by a night wind. Occasionally, a bird's hesitant call breaks the stillness, a reminder of life continuing beyond the broken village. The air is cool and heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and smoke lingering from fires set days before. Inside, the schoolhouse feels both sanctuary and prison. The walls bear silent witness to countless small dramas, whispered hopes, stifled cries, and moments of quiet courage that go unnoticed by the wider world. You catch a glimpse of a nurse tending to a man whose eyes flicker open, just long enough to offer a faint, grateful smile before slipping away again. There is no time for grief, only the endless work of care and comfort. You find a moment to sit against a wall, your body weary and aching. Your fingers brush the worn leather of your medical satchel, heavy with supplies, both used and waiting. The quiet presses in, and for a moment your thoughts drift. Memories of home, of peace, of simpler days. But the present pulls you back as the groan of a stretcher being carried through the door breaks the stillness. You rise, steadying yourself, and move to assist. Another wave of wounded has arrived, their faces pale and eyes wide with shock. The work begins anew, bandages, splints, triage. The long hours between bursts of violence are filled with this delicate, unending dance of life and death. There is no rest, only the steady pull to do what you can, to hold on for those who cannot. The night deepens, the rain begins again, soft and relentless. You feel the weight of it all, the fear, the fatigue, the fragile hope. And yet, you continue, because in this place, in these moments, your hands are the difference between despair and the faintest chance of healing. The night wears on, deep and silent, except for the occasional rustle of fabric and the soft breathing of those who rest or suffer nearby. In the low light, faces emerge and fade like ghosts, some peaceful, some contorted with pain, others fixed in quiet resolve. You move among them, your footsteps hushed, careful not to disturb the fragile balance between wakefulness and sleep. A soldier near the far wall opens his eyes briefly. You find a moment to sit against a wall, your body weary and aching. Your fingers brush the worn leather of your medical satchel, heavy with supplies, both used and waiting. The quiet presses in, and for a moment your thoughts drift. Memories of home, of peace, of simpler days. But the present pulls you back as the groan of a stretcher being carried through the door breaks the stillness. You rise, steadying yourself, and move to assist. Another wave of wounded has arrived, their faces pale and eyes wide with shock. The work begins anew, bandages, splints, triage. The long hours between bursts of violence are filled with this delicate, unending dance of life and death. There is no rest, only the steady pull to do what you can, to hold on for those who cannot. The night deepens, the rain begins again, soft and relentless. You feel the weight of it all, the fear, the fatigue, the fragile hope. And yet, returning to the room, you see a nurse softly singing a lullaby in French, her voice barely above a whisper. The wounded listen, some with eyes closed, others with distant gazes. The song weaves through the air, a fragile thread of humanity in a place defined by suffering. You pause, letting the melody wash over you, grounding you in this moment. Time stretches, undefined, as the night deepens. The faces around you hold stories you will never know, of families, dreams, fears. You tend to them all with the same quiet care, aware that your hands are part of a fragile chain, linking past to future, life to memory. And though the darkness is vast, within these walls, the light of compassion remains steady, a beacon in the shadowed night. The morning arrives with a muted light, soft and grey, filtering through the cracks in the boarded-up windows. Outside, the rain has ceased, leaving the earth damp and heavy with the scent of wet grass and churned soil. The village lies silent, its broken streets empty now, but for the lingering echoes of the chaos that once tore through them. You step carefully over splintered wood and scattered debris as you make your way back inside the schoolhouse. Inside, the atmosphere is different, less frantic, more subdued. The wounded are fewer, the endless tide momentarily receded. Some have been moved to larger field hospitals or carried back to safer zones. Others have succumbed despite every effort. The air is thick with quiet sorrow and exhaustion. You find yourself moving slower, your hands heavier, the weight of the night's work settling deep into your bones. You sit beside a young man whose breathing has evened, but whose eyes remain distant. He reaches out, grasping your hand weakly, a silent thank you for the small kindness in a world that has forgotten mercy. There are no words, just the simple connection of shared humanity in a place where so much has been lost. A nurse approaches with a worn notebook, jotting down details of each patient, each injury, each fading life. The meticulous records are a testament to order in the midst of chaos, a reminder that every individual here mattered, even if the world outside seems to forget. You help where you can, your movements automatic, yet precise, as if muscle memory has taken over the burden of care. Outside, the sky brightens slowly, revealing the battered landscape with stark clarity. The twisted remnants of vehicles, the shattered hedgerows, the muddy craters still smoking faintly from recent bombardments. You breathe deeply, tasting the sharp tang of earth and rain. The calm is fragile. A brief pause before the storm returns. Back inside, a lull descends. Some sleep, others sit quietly, gathering what strength remains. You lean against a wall, eyes closing for a moment, the ache in your body a steady companion. The faces around you, some peaceful, others haunted, linger in your mind, a mosaic of courage and loss. The day stretches ahead, uncertain and unyielding. But for now, in this fragile quiet, there is space to breathe, to remember, and to prepare for whatever comes next. As the day unfolds, a strange stillness settles over the schoolhouse, broken only by the quiet shuffling of feet and the soft murmur of voices. The wounded who can move do so with careful steps, while those too weak remain cocooned in blankets, faces pale, but eyes flickering with the faintest glimmers of life. You move among them, your hands busy but your mind restless, weighed down by a fatigue deeper than muscle or bone. The true burden of being a medic is not only the physical exhaustion but the emotional weight that presses upon you like an unseen shroud. Each life you touch, each bandage you wrap, carries with it a fragment of hope, and sometimes an unbearable grief. You carry the stories of those who do not survive, the silence left by the ones who never return. They follow you, lingering in the spaces between your thoughts. You find yourself drawn to a small corner where a nurse quietly tends to a soldier with a shattered leg. Her touch is steady, her voice calm, yet you catch the flicker of weariness in her eyes. She shares a brief glance with you, a silent acknowledgement of the shared burden you both carry. There are no words strong enough to ease the weight, only the quiet presence of someone who understands. Outside, the sky darkens with heavy clouds, and a chill wind sweeps through the broken village. The distant rumble of artillery resumes, a grim reminder that the fight continues beyond these walls. You glance toward the windows, watching the shadows lengthen as the afternoon wanes. Inside, the medics and nurses prepare for the inevitable arrival of more wounded. Supplies are checked, stretchers readied, and lists reviewed. The cycle of care, injury and loss feels endless, a tide that ebbs and flows but never truly recedes. You steel yourself, knowing that whatever comes next, you will face it with the same quiet determination.
In these moments between battles, the silence is both a comfort and a torment. You hold your place in this fragile world, a guardian of life amid the relentless tide of war, carrying the unseen burden with steady hands and a weary heart. The afternoon lingers, stretched thin between moments of hurried urgency and long stretches of stillness. Outside, the wind carries a faint chill, stirring loose papers and bending the few remaining branches that reach toward a leaden sky. The village sits in quiet suspension, as if holding its breath between waves of violence. Inside, the schoolhouse is a world apart, both sanctuary and frontline, a place where time loses its usual meaning. You find yourself caught in the weight of waiting. There is a rhythm here, but it's irregular and unpredictable, a quiet that can snap suddenly into chaos. The waiting is heavy, a slow-burning tension that seeps into your bones, making every minute feel both endless and too brief. You move among the wounded and the weary, offering what comfort you can, but the uncertainty lingers like a shadow. A nurse passes by with a tired smile, carrying fresh bandages and a small cup of tea. You accept it gratefully, feeling the warmth spread slowly through your fingers. For a brief moment, the world narrows to this simple act, a shared pause in the midst of turmoil. Yet, even as you sip, your mind drifts to the roads and fields beyond, wondering when the next call will come, who it will bring, and how many will be changed forever. You glance toward the windows, watching as the light dims, filtered through clouds heavy with rain. The courtyard outside is empty now, marked only by footprints and the scattered remnants of battle. You imagine the medics and soldiers moving through those fields, some running, some falling, others carrying the wounded on stretchers or makeshift slings. The thought tightens your chest, but you remind yourself to breathe. Inside, preparations continue quietly but methodically. Supplies are inventoried, stretchers checked, and the injured repositioned to ease their pain. Conversations are hushed, words measured and careful. The atmosphere feels fragile, balanced precariously between exhaustion and resolve. You sit for a moment on a worn bench, the weight of the day pressing down. The waiting is the hardest part, not the loud moments of crisis, but this silent stretching of time when fear and hope coexist uneasily. And still you wait, because the work must continue, no matter what comes next. As the grey light deepens toward evening, the sudden sound of distant engines breaks the fragile stillness. You tense, heart quickening, the quiet shattered by the approach of vehicles, ambulances and jeeps bearing fresh casualties from the front. The door creaks open and new faces enter the room, pale, bloodied, eyes wide with shock or closed in pain. The cycle renews itself with relentless clarity. You rise immediately, muscles aching but mind sharp, ready to tend to those who have just escaped the horrors of the battlefield. The air thickens with the scent of gunpowder, dirt, and the unmistakable sharp tang of blood. The wounded are carried in carefully, but with urgency, and you move among them, assessing injuries, offering steady hands, and applying what care you can in the limited space. There is little time for words, only the steady hum of effort, the rustle of bandages, the occasional whispered reassurance. You notice a young man, barely older than a boy, his face streaked with grime and fear. His leg is badly wounded, the makeshift tourniquet soaped. You kneel beside him, your fingers working with practiced skill, your voice calm as you reassure him in broken sentences. His grip tightens briefly on your arm, a silent plea for something more than the pain and uncertainty. The others around you blur into a moving tide of need and determination. Nurses and fellow medics move with a quiet coordination born of necessity, each knowing their role in this fragile dance between life and death. The room hums with tension and focus, every breath and movement measured. Outside, the sky darkens fully, clouds heavy with the promise of rain. The village rests under the gathering storm, its streets empty and scarred. Inside, you are a beacon of steadiness, a guardian of the fragile line that holds between survival and loss. The arrival of the wounded is a grim reminder of the price paid beyond these walls, of battles fought not just in fields and trenches, but in every quiet corner where hands work to heal. You continue your work through the growing night, the faces before you etched indelibly into your memory. The weight of each life rests on your hands, and you carry it with the same quiet strength that has brought you this far. Night deepens around the schoolhouse, thickening the shadows that pool in corners and along the worn wooden floor. The lanterns burn low, casting flickering light on faces drawn tight with pain and exhaustion. You move through the dim space with practiced care, your hands steady but your mind heavy. The silence between cries and coughs is a weight unto itself, pressing down as surely as any wound. The wounded lie restless, some slipping into fevered dreams, others murmuring broken words. You pause beside a soldier whose eyes open briefly, clouded but searching. He tries to speak, his voice a faint rasp. You lean closer, catching the tremor in his breath and the tremble of his fingers. No grand words offer comfort here, only the steady presence of someone who listens, who does not turn away. The toll of this night is not only counted in injuries, but in moments like these. The quiet losses, the unseen despair. Every life saved feels fragile against the vast backdrop of war. Every wound tended a small battle won in an unending conflict. Yet the true cost is measured not just in bodies, but in the weariness that settles deep in your bones, and the ache that no medicine can ease. Outside, distant thunder rumbles softly, the coming storm echoing the turmoil within. You glance toward the window, watching shadows dance across broken rooftops and shattered walls. The village holds its breath beneath the darkened sky, unaware of the lives being fought for inside. You return to your tasks, wrapping bandages with care, offering water with a quiet word. The night stretches endlessly, a slow march toward dawn. You carry the silent toll of all you have witnessed, the whispered prayers, the fleeting smiles, the hands that grasp yours before slipping away. And still you continue, bound to this fragile duty, the unseen guardian of life in the heart of darkness. The night deepens and settles around the schoolhouse, thickening like a velvet curtain drawn slowly across the sky. Outside, the stars flicker faintly through breaks in the low-hanging clouds, their distant light fragile and cold against the dark expanse. The village lies silent, scarred and broken by days of relentless violence, but within these walls, life clings to a tenuous thread, fragile, yet unyielding. The air is heavy with the mingled scents of sweat, antiseptic, earth and something else harder to name, the faint lingering odour of fear and hope intertwined. You move slowly through the dimly lit room, your footsteps softened by worn floorboards and the heavy quiet. The wounded rest uneasily, some caught in restless sleep, others fighting to stay awake against the encroaching darkness that threatens to swallow them whole. Faces blur and sharpen in the lantern's flicker, some calm, some twisted in pain, some staring blankly as if seeing beyond this place. You bend over a stretcher, your fingers tracing the lines of a soldier's face, roughened by dirt and fatigue, eyes closed but dreaming a story only he can know.
There is a stillness here that feels almost sacred, broken only by the faintest sighs, the soft rustle of fabric, and the quiet murmur of a nurse comforting a child who was brought in hours ago. The nurse's voice is low,
almost a whisper, threading through the air like a gentle song, offering what solace words can in a world shattered by war. You pause near a window, looking out into the night. The fields beyond are dark and endless, broken only by the silhouettes of ruined trees and the distant glow of fires far off in the distance. Somewhere, beyond this small circle of suffering, the battle rages on, a relentless tide that does not pause for exhaustion or grief. The knowledge presses down on you like the weight of the earth itself, heavy and unyielding. Inside, your hands move with quiet precision, checking bandages, adjusting blankets, offering sips of water. Each motion is deliberate, a small act of care in a world defined by destruction. You notice a young soldier, barely able to lift his head, his breath shallow and uneven. Your fingers brush gently against his cheek, and he opens his eyes, meeting your gaze with a flicker of recognition and something like trust. There is no grand conversation, only the simple connection of shared humanity amid the chaos. Time becomes difficult to measure here. Minutes bleed into hours as you move through this fragile landscape of pain and healing. The faces around you are etched into your memory, a mosaic of courage, fear, and quiet resilience. You carry them with you, these silent witnesses to the cost of a day that has already rewritten countless lives. Outside, the first hint of dawn tugs at the horizon, faint and uncertain. The stars fade slowly, swallowed by the encroaching light. The village remains still, waiting for whatever the new day will bring. And within this fragile sanctuary, you continue your vigil, steady, unwavering, holding the fragile thread of life against the vast and relentless night. The first pale light of dawn seeps slowly through the cracks and broken panes of the schoolhouse windows, casting long, soft shadows across the worn wooden floor. Outside, the air is cool and still, the village wrapped in a quiet so profound it almost seems unnatural after the days of relentless chaos. The muted chirping of a few early birds stirs gently, hesitant to break the fragile peace that blankets the battered landscape. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy with exhaustion and a cautious hope. The wounded who survived the night shift stir softly, shifting in their makeshift beds, their breaths shallow but steady. You move among them carefully, your steps lighter than before, but your mind weighed down by memories of the long hours past. The bruises beneath your skin, the ache in your hands, the faint tremor in your heart, they all remind you of the cost borne silently by those who care for the broken. The silence feels tentative, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next wave. You check on a soldier whose face is pale but peaceful, eyes closed in a fragile sleep. Nearby, a nurse tends to a young man whose wounds are bandaged tightly, but whose eyes flicker with pain beneath the lids. She murmurs soft words, her voice calm but tinged with the same quiet weariness you feel. The small acts of kindness and care here are both a balm and a burden. You glance toward the window again. The sky is lightening, a soft wash of grey-blue that promises a new day but reveals the scars of the one past. The fields beyond are quiet now, dotted with spent shells and broken branches, silent witnesses to the violence that unfolded. Somewhere, far away, the distant thunder of artillery rumbles faintly, a reminder that the battle is far from over. The steady rhythm of life continues within these walls. Medics prepare supplies, clean instruments, and ready stretchers, anticipating the inevitable arrival of more wounded. Each small gesture is part of a larger story, a chain of resilience and endurance woven through the darkest hours. You feel the pull of that story, the knowledge that your role is a fragile lifeline, a tether to hope amidst the relentless tide of suffering. As the light grows stronger, so too does the resolve that pulses quietly beneath the fatigue. The morning brings no promises, only the certainty of continued struggle and the enduring need for care. And so, you prepare once more to stand at the edge of chaos, ready to face the unknown with steady hands and a heart tempered by all you have seen. The morning shifts slowly into the steady rhythm of arrivals. Through the cracked doorway come the muted sounds of footsteps and quiet voices, medics calling gently as they carry the newly wounded inside. The schoolhouse, still marked by the scars of the previous days, begins to fill again with a quiet urgency. This place,
once a sanctuary, transforms once more into a centre of care and determination. You move carefully through the room, eyes attentive to each new face. There are those who rest quietly, others wincing softly with discomfort, and some too weak to speak. The air carries a mix of clean antiseptic, the earthiness of mud, and the faint, lingering scent of old smoke. It is a reminder that even here, far from the front lines, the echoes of conflict remain close.
A young medic's voice breaks through the quiet, steady but edged with fatigue as he approaches, carrying a soldier with a severe leg injury. The wound is carefully wrapped, though the pain is still visible in the man's tense expression. You step forward calmly, hands trained by countless hours, ready to offer care, adjusting bandages, applying pressure, doing all you can to ease the discomfort and stabilize the injury. You speak softly, offering a few comforting words, a steady presence amid uncertainty. Around you, others work with quiet focus. Nurses gently clean wounds and administer medicine, their faces worn but resolute. Stretchers line the walls, each holding someone whose strength has been tested, whose breath carries the weight of what has come before. The room hums with an unspoken understanding. Every effort counts. Every life matters. Outside, the sky darkens slightly as clouds gather, a reminder that the weather, like the battle, is unpredictable. The distant sound of artillery rolls faintly, a subtle underscore to the fragile calm inside these walls. The village itself remains still, bearing the marks of struggle, but offering a brief respite from the storm. In this ongoing flow, you find a rhythm, a blend of urgency and patience, of care and quiet endurance. Each moment spent here is a thread woven into a larger story of resilience, and through it all, you continue, steady and focused, holding space for hope in a world that demands strength beyond measure. The day wears on, and with it comes a fragile calm that settles unevenly over the schoolhouse. Between the arrivals of the wounded, there are moments, small, quiet pockets of time that feel almost suspended, as if the world has paused briefly to catch its breath. You move through these moments slowly, almost in a daze, your body aching and your mind heavy but alert. The ache in your hands is constant, a reminder of the countless wounds you've tended, the delicate thread on which life now hangs. In one corner, a nurse gently fans a soldier who lies pale and sweating, his breathing shallow but steady. The room hums with quiet conversations, soft footsteps, and the occasional sigh or whisper, the low murmur of human presence holding at bay the weight of silence. You glance around at the faces illuminated by flickering lantern light, some etched with pain, others carrying a tired but grateful expression. Each one tells a story that you can't fully know, but carry with you nonetheless. You find a moment to sit briefly, letting your hands rest in your lap. Your thoughts drift to the days before the invasion. Quiet mornings and simple routines now replaced by the relentless urgency of this makeshift hospital. You remember the hope that carried you here, and the steady resolve that keeps you moving forward despite the exhaustion.
Outside, the sky shifts again. The clouds part just enough to let a thin ribbon of pale sunlight touch the battered earth. A faint breeze stirs, carrying the distant sounds of the battlefield, muffled and far away, but a constant reminder that the conflict continues beyond these walls. The village, scarred but standing, holds its fragile peace as best it can. In this fragile moment between the storms of violence and care, you breathe deeply and steel yourself for what comes next. You are part of a quiet chain of courage and endurance, a keeper of life amid chaos. And though the hours ahead promise more hardship, you know that every small act of care holds meaning beyond measure. As afternoon deepens, shadows stretch long across the schoolhouse floor, darkening the corners where the quiet murmurs persist. The room, once filled with soft light, now feels cooler, the fading warmth of day slipping away like a whispered promise. Outside, the sky grows heavy with clouds,
casting a sombre grey over the village's broken rooftops and scarred streets. The distant rumble of artillery fades and rises like a restless tide, an endless reminder that the battle beyond has not yet ceased. Inside, you move among the wounded with careful steps. Some are resting, eyes closed in fleeting moments of peace, while others shift uncomfortably on makeshift beds, the weight of pain pressing down like an invisible hand. You attend to each with the same gentle precision, your hand steady even when your heart aches beneath the surface. The work is tiring beyond measure, yet there is a quiet satisfaction in the small victories, the steady pulse of a patient stabilized, the faint smile offered in gratitude. The longer you stay in this dimming light, the more the silence begins to speak. It carries the weight of untold stories, of quiet bravery, and the fragile thread of hope that holds against despair. You find yourself thinking of the medics you have met, their courage not in grand gestures, but in the small acts of kindness and endurance that often go unseen. A nurse moves past, her face drawn but serene, carrying a tray of water and medicine. She pauses briefly, offering a tired but genuine smile before continuing on her way. It is a brief connection, but one that reminds you that you are not alone in this. The shared burden of care creates a subtle bond, a quiet strength that sustains everyone here. Outside the window, the first drops of rain begin to fall, soft at first, then growing steadier. The sound is a gentle patter against the broken glass and battered wood, a soothing, natural rhythm that contrasts with the chaos that brought you here. The village braces beneath the rain, silent and waiting, much like you. As the day fades into evening, you prepare once again for the long hours ahead. The shadows lengthen, but so too does your resolve, steady and unwavering. The work of healing continues, a quiet testament to the resilience of those who refuse to surrender to the darkness. Evening settles slowly, drawing a soft, muted curtain over the village and the schoolhouse alike. The steady patter of rain outside creates a gentle rhythm that fills the spaces between the quiet breaths and hushed voices inside. The flickering lanterns cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, painting the room with a mix of light and darkness that seems to echo the fragile balance between hope and hardship. You move carefully among the wounded, now fewer in number but no less in need. The long hours have carved lines of exhaustion into every face. The nurse's gentle hands, the medic's steady fingers, the patient's weary eyes. Each person carries the invisible weight of the day's trials, a shared burden that presses down without complaint. In one corner, a soldier sits propped against the wall, fingers loosely gripping a worn photograph. His gaze is distant, lost in memory, and you pause a moment to offer a quiet presence. Words are unnecessary here, the silence between you speaks volumes, a delicate understanding born of shared experience and the unspoken bond forged in hardship. The rain continues its steady fall, a soft percussion on the roof that mingles with the occasional sigh or whispered conversation. The air is cool and heavy, filled with the mingled scents of damp earth, antiseptic and faint traces of smoke. Outside, the village rests beneath the grey sky, battered but unbroken, much like those within these walls. You feel the weight of the quiet hours settle around you, a heavy but familiar cloak. There is a strange comfort in the stillness, even as it carries the echoes of pain and loss. It is a time for small acts, adjusting a blanket, offering a sip of water, brushing a stray lock of hair from a fevered brow. These moments, though simple, are the threads that hold the fragile fabric of care together. As night deepens, you prepare for what lies ahead. The work is far from over, the journey long and uncertain, yet in this wait of quiet hours, you find a steadfast resolve, a quiet strength that will carry you through the darkness, step by careful step. The night has deepened into a heavy quiet, broken only by the occasional rustle of fabric or the soft murmur of a nurse's voice. Outside, the rain has softened to a gentle drizzle, tapping rhythmically against the battered roof. The schoolhouse feels suspended in time, a fragile sanctuary caught between the chaos of battle and the stillness of night. You move through the dimly lit space with slow, deliberate care, your steps softened by fatigue and the weight of the day's memories pressing upon you. Each wounded soldier seems wrapped in his own world of pain and dreams, some drifting into uneasy sleep, others awake and restless, eyes reflecting the flickering lantern light. You pause beside one who gazes upward, searching the shadows as if seeking answers in the quiet darkness. You offer a gentle touch to his arm, a small reassurance, a wordless promise that he is not alone in this vast and difficult night.
The hours stretch long and slow, the rhythm of care punctuated by soft sighs and whispered comforts. You check bandages, offer sips of water, and adjust blankets with hands that move from muscle memory, steady and sure despite the weariness that tugs at your bones. Outside, the distant sounds of war continue, a muted symphony of thunder and occasional sharp cracks that remind you the conflict is never far away, even in these moments of relative peace. In the stillness, your mind drifts briefly to the families waiting far from this place, hoping and praying for their loved one's safe return. You carry those hopes silently, a hidden burden alongside the physical tasks that consume your time. Each life here feels precious and fragile, a thread holding against the unraveling darkness. The night deepens, but so does your resolve. You remain vigilant, the quiet guardian of those who cannot care for themselves. In this long night's vigil, there is no room for rest, only the steady rhythm of care, compassion, and endurance, a testament to the strength found in the smallest acts of kindness amid the vastness of war.
As the night begins to wane, a subtle shift fills the air, the quiet stirring of a world on the edge of waking. The lanterns flicker softly, their light dimming as the first faint fingers of dawn brush the horizon outside. Through the cracked windows, you glimpse the slow, pale glow that promises another day, uncertain and heavy with the weight of what lies ahead. The village, wrapped in mist and silence, holds its breath beneath the fragile light. Inside, the schoolhouse feels suspended between darkness and day, the air thick with quiet anticipation. The wounded rest in scattered groups, some still caught in dreams edged with pain, others awakening to the gentle touch of care. You move among them with practiced ease, your hands steady despite the fatigue that pulls at every fibre of your being. Each breath you take is measured, mindful of the fragile line between healing and loss. A nurse whispers softly to a soldier who stirs beside you, her voice a thread of calm woven through the heavy stillness. You pause, catching the faint smile that flickers in response, a small, fragile sign of resilience amid the shadows. These moments are fleeting but profound, a quiet promise that even here, hope can take root. Outside, the first birds begin to sing, their calls tentative yet insistent. The rain from the night before clings to leaves and rubble, sparkling faintly in the newborn light. The village stirs slowly, its battered streets waiting once again for the coming day. A day that will bring new challenges, new stories, and the unyielding continuation of this relentless journey. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night begin to lift, if only slightly. The dawn carries no guarantees, only the steady promise of time moving forward, and so you prepare yourself, ready to meet whatever comes with quiet strength, carrying the whispered hope of morning into the uncertain hours ahead. The fragile light of dawn slowly strengthens, filtering through the shattered windows and casting a pale glow on the worn wooden floorboards beneath your feet. Outside, the village remains quiet, still draped in the gentle mist of early morning. The rain from the night before has softened the earth, turning the narrow dirt paths into slick trails of mud that glisten faintly in the new light. The calm outside contrasts sharply with the relentless demands that fill the schoolhouse, a place that feels both refuge and battleground. You move among the wounded once more, feeling the familiar but heavy burden settle on your shoulders, the burden of care that is as much a weight of the heart as it is of the hands. Every face you pass tells a story of pain and endurance, each one a quiet testament to the resilience required simply to survive. The air is thick with the mingled scents of antiseptic, damp fabric, and the faint but persistent odour of earth and smoke. It is a sensory mosaic that you know too well, one that has become part of your daily existence. The morning's light reveals details that were once hidden in shadow, bands of bruising beneath torn uniforms, the pale clamminess of fevered skin, the subtle shifts of someone struggling against pain that cannot be fully eased. You carefully adjust a soldier's bandages, your fingers gentle but firm, your mind attentive to the delicate balance between comfort and necessity. Nearby, a nurse offers water to another, her voice soft and steady despite the exhaustion that laces every movement. Time here is fluid, marked not by clocks, but by the ebb and flow of arrivals, the slow progress of healing, and the quiet moments in between. You remember the first days of the invasion, the rush of adrenaline, the chaos of the beaches, the desperate efforts to pull men from the wreckage. Now, in this quieter space, the reality of the work reveals itself in long, measured hours, where care becomes a form of quiet battle against suffering. There is no room for haste in these moments. Each action requires patience and precision, a mindful attention that stretches beyond the physical to touch something deeper, the determination to hold life steady when all around seems uncertain. You find yourself listening, not only to the sounds of breathing and shifting limbs, but to the unspoken fears and hopes that linger just beneath the surface. In the corner, a young medic sits quietly, head bowed, the lines of fatigue etched deeply into his face. You catch his eye briefly, a silent exchange passing between you, a shared understanding of the sacrifices made in this unforgiving role. The weight of responsibility can feel crushing, but it is borne with a quiet dignity that gives strength to all who witness it. Outside, the sky brightens slowly, promising the return of sunlight and perhaps a brief reprieve from the grey heaviness that has hung over the village. Yet, you know that this day, like those before it, will bring new challenges and demands. The battle is far from over, and the need for care continues without pause. Still, in these moments, the careful tending, the quiet vigilance, the small acts of compassion, you find a fragile hope. It is a hope not of grand gestures, but of persistence, of enduring through the darkest hours, with steady hands and an unyielding heart. And it is this hope that carries you forward, step by careful step, into whatever comes next. The light of morning stretches slowly across the village, filtering through cracked windows and casting soft shadows that mingle with the lingering dust of days past. The schoolhouse, once a place of learning and quiet routine, remains a vessel filled with resilience and quiet determination. Around you, the steady hum of whispered conversations and measured movements fills the air, a gentle backdrop to the ongoing work of healing. You move carefully from one bedside to another, feeling the weight of responsibility settle deeper with each step. The wounded lie scattered across the room, their faces etched with a blend of exhaustion, pain, and a fragile hope. Each injury tells a story, not only of battle, but of survival, of the thin line that separates despair from endurance. Your hands work methodically, guided by years of training but tempered by the realities that no lesson could prepare you for. Outside, the morning air carries the distant murmur of activity, the low drone of engines, the muffled voices of soldiers preparing for what the day might bring. The village, scarred but standing, breathes beneath a sky that shifts from soft blues to pale greys, the calm before another inevitable storm. The scent of damp earth and fresh rain clings to the air, mingling with the faint antiseptic and the more subtle, poignant fragrance of human presence. In this space between moments, you find yourself drawn to the small threads of resilience that weave through the room. A nurse's quiet encouragement as she soothes a trembling hand, a soldier's faint smile despite the pain that tightens his features, the soft murmur of a whispered prayer. All these become anchors in the shifting tides of hardship. These threads hold the fragile fabric of hope together, delicate yet unbreakable. Your thoughts drift to the medics and caregivers who came before you, those who faced similar trials with quiet courage, their stories often unspoken but never forgotten. Their legacy lives on in each steady hand and each act of care, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who choose to stand between life and loss. The hours stretch forward, each one filled with the same solemn rhythms, tending wounds, offering comfort, bearing witness. It is a relentless cycle, but within it lies a profound purpose. You are part of something larger than yourself, a quiet force of healing amid the chaos, a keeper of hope in a world shadowed by uncertainty. And so, with each breath and every careful movement, you carry forward the fragile light of resilience. It is this light, flickering but unwavering, that sustains you now and through all the days yet to come. The day moves forward with a slow, deliberate pace, each hour unfolding like a fragile petal, revealing moments of quiet strength beneath the surface. Inside the schoolhouse, the atmosphere is a blend of fatigue and resolve, an unspoken understanding shared among those who carry the weight of care. The wounded rest where they can, their breath soft and uneven, while the medics and nurses weave through the space, steady and attentive. You pause for a moment beside a young soldier whose eyes flicker open briefly, meeting yours with a hesitant trust. In that glance, there is an unspoken bond, a silent acknowledgement of the shared journey, the fragile thread connecting caregiver and patient. It is in these moments, brief and fleeting, that the true depth of your role becomes clear. You are not only tending wounds, but bearing witness to the resilience of the human spirit. Around you, others move with the same quiet dedication. A nurse adjusts a blanket with gentle hands, while a medic carefully cleans a fresh injury, his face etched with concentration and fatigue. The room hums softly with whispered reassurances and the soft clatter of medical supplies. These small acts, repeated again and again, build a delicate web of support, a network of care that stretches beyond the walls of the schoolhouse. Outside, the sky shifts, clouds parting to let shafts of sunlight spill onto the battered streets. The village breathes beneath this light, carrying scars and stories etched into every stone and shattered window pane. The distant sounds of the battle continue, a persistent reminder of the world just beyond this fragile haven. In this space, you find a measure of peace. Not in the absence of hardship, but in the quiet bonds forged through shared purpose and enduring compassion. The work is relentless, the days long and often harsh, yet there is a strength here that transcends fatigue. It is the strength of connection, of humanity reaching out amid the shadow of conflict. As the hours pass, you carry these bonds with you, each one a reminder of why this work matters. Though the road ahead remains uncertain, the ties you nurture here offer a steady light, a quiet hope that sustains both those who give care and those who receive it. The afternoon light wanes softly, casting long, cool shadows across the worn wooden floor of the schoolhouse. The atmosphere remains heavy with quiet endurance, the air thick with the mingled scents of medicine, damp earth, and the faint trace of lingering smoke from distant fires. Every breath you take carries the weight of countless stories, of pain borne silently, of small victories won in the face of overwhelming odds. You move from bed to bed, your hands steady, though your heart feels the pull of exhaustion and sorrow alike. Behind each face is a narrative of struggle unseen by most, the slow battle to hold on to life amid wounds that time and care can only partially mend. Some of the men speak softly, their voices fragile threads in the room's steady murmur, while others are lost in quiet reverie, eyes fixed on the ceiling or distant memories. The work here is relentless. It is not just the visible injuries that demand attention, but the deeper, quieter battles waged in minds and hearts. Fear, fatigue, and the lingering shadow of trauma cling to many, hidden beneath furrowed brows and clenched jaws. Your role, as much as it is to tend physical wounds, is to be a steady presence in these unseen struggles, to offer a calm amid the storm, however small that calm may be. Outside, the village sits under a sky streaked with grey, the distant echoes of conflict rolling like thunder over the hills. The rain from earlier has faded into a damp chill that settles into the bones, a reminder that the hardships faced here are not only from wounds, but from the elements themselves. You adjust a blanket around a shivering patient, your touch gentle, offering warmth where words cannot. In this quiet room, amid the endless care and quiet despair, there is a resilience that endures. It is not always loud or proud, but found in the steady hands that soothe pain, the eyes that meet a patient's gaze with empathy, the small moments of human connection that defy the chaos beyond these walls. As you continue your work, you carry this knowledge quietly with you, that even in the darkest hours, the unseen struggles are met with compassion and strength. It is this invisible courage that sustains the fragile hope weaving through the schoolhouse, a hope that will carry forward, day after day, through every challenge still to come. The evening draws near with a gentle hush that settles over the village like a soft sigh. Light wanes slowly, folding the battered streets and quiet fields into shadows that stretch long and cool. Inside the schoolhouse, the subdued glow of lanterns flickers against cracked walls, casting a warm but fragile light on faces etched with weariness and determination.
The steady rhythm of care continues, unbroken by the weight of fatigue or the lingering echoes of the day's battle. You move softly among those who rest and those who stir, each gesture measured and purposeful. The hours have been long and heavy, yet the quiet courage that fills this space remains unspoken, but palpable. It is a courage born not from moments of glory, but from the persistent act of staying present, of facing pain and fear without faltering. The medics and nurses here embody that strength, their resolve quiet but unyielding. A soldier lies nearby, his breathing uneven but steady, eyes closed as if seeking refuge in dreams. You pause beside him, adjusting his bandages with careful hands, mindful of the fragility beneath the fabric. His face, pale but peaceful for the moment, carries the weight of stories you will never fully know. Stories of sacrifice, loss, and the unspoken hope that this night might bring relief. The room holds countless such stories, each one a testament to the resilience woven through the long hours of care. The medics' work is often invisible to the world beyond, their sacrifices folded quietly into the greater narrative of battle. Yet here, in this small sanctuary, their courage shines clearly, a beacon of humanity amid the relentless tide of war. Outside, the first stars begin to appear, delicate points of light piercing the darkening sky. The village breathes beneath their glow, scarred but standing, a reminder that even in the aftermath of devastation, life endures. The night will be long, and the work unending, but in this unspoken courage you find a steadfast strength, a quiet promise to those who suffer that they will not be forgotten, not tonight, not ever. The first light of dawn creeps gently over the horizon, a pale wash of pink and gold stretching across a sky still heavy with lingering shadows. Outside, the village awakens slowly, its battered streets and broken walls softened by the morning haze. Inside the schoolhouse, the air is thick with quiet reflection and the weight of all that has passed. The long night has yielded to a fragile new day, but the work of healing continues, steady and unrelenting. You stand among the wounded, your hands steady despite the exhaustion that seeps deep into your bones. Each face you see holds a story, of pain endured, of lives forever changed by moments that will never be forgotten. There is no triumph here, no grand victory, only the slow, patient acts of care that keep hope alive in the midst of ruin. It is a work that demands every ounce of strength and compassion you have, a testament to the quiet resolve that defines those who choose this path. The sounds of the village begin to stir, the distant murmur of voices, the soft clatter of footsteps, the tentative rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. Outside, life moves forward, carrying the scars of the past, but also the promise of a future still unwritten. Within these walls, the medics and nurses continue their vigil, guardians of fragile life in a world forever changed by war. As the sun rises higher, casting its warm light through the shattered windows, you feel the weight of the journey carried in your heart. The road ahead remains uncertain, the challenges many, and the burdens heavy. Yet in this dawn, there is also a quiet strength, a steady flame that refuses to be extinguished. It is the strength of compassion, endurance, and unyielding hope. And so, you prepare to face the day once more, carrying forward the stories of those who came before, and those who still need your care. In the quiet resolve of this morning light, you find the courage to continue, step by careful step, through whatever lies ahead. Thank you for listening to this journey through the untold stories of battlefield medics on D-Day, the quiet heroes who faced unimaginable challenges with steady hands and unshaken hearts. As you settle in now, may the calm strength and resilience you've heard carry you gently into rest. May your sleep be deep and peaceful, wrapped in the quiet hope that even in the darkest times, compassion and courage endure. Good night.